I'm really excited to talk about this subject today. I have an interest in it in myself, and I think that Paul is a very interesting and very well liked teacher, and so I'm happy that he was able to join us today. And then we have Mila, who is a current student who has taken with Paul and also has taken classes in our media and technology department and is going to talk to us today. And then after Paul tells us a little bit about the program, I'm going to open it up to questions for you. And we hope that with this smaller group it can be a nice discussion, so please feel free and comfortable. I'm also really excited to get to know all of you, so let's hear. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So Paul is a PhD in film history. Paul? And
It's actually the history of technology, but then I also did film production as my BFA, so my undergrad's in film production.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, do you mind, Paul Gansky, everybody, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and then talking a little bit about the media and technology program at Ross?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was about your age, guys, I graduated from high school a little bit early, and I went into a film production track in Colorado. It was an experimental film track, so it was back when you actually shot stuff on film. So I did a lot of darkroom work, and I really fell in love with film. I thought it was just a fantastic thing to do. I worked professionally for about a year and a half doing animation and editing work. And ever since then, I've been stuck in school. So I've been in school pretty much my entire life. As the Dean of Media Studies, basically I oversee a program that's both historical but also creative. So in all of your core courses, every fall, winter, or spring, you'll take an integrated arts course. And one of those integrated arts courses will be media. So you'll focus on photography or filmmaking or advertising or something historical in terms of technology or media. And then after that, you guys get a chance to take electives. Those typically happen in the afternoon. So it's the second half of your day here at Ross. And if you're really into media, you can take photography classes, you can take animation classes, film production classes, or much more historical kind of funky stuff like my countercultural media course. So it's a really wide range of courses you can take under media studies and technology.
I will unmute myself. Sorry. Awesome. Paul, can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the opportunities that students have had and some of the kinds of, like the various kinds of projects that they do, like as far as like, the differences between documentary or narrative projects or like history projects like you talked about?
Yeah, totally. In terms of elective projects, because the electives are only 40 minutes long and your day is going to be busy at Ross, my sense is that typically students do much more smaller scale stuff. They're just trying things out. So if you want to do a music video or a short animation, and by short, I mean 1 to 2 minutes long in an elective, that's probably all you're going to have time for in a given semester. It's mainly about learning the techniques and hanging out. And electives are supposed to be a lot more fun and free form than your core courses. So just know that if you take an elective with me, usually it's a little bit more easygoing, although I'm sure Mila will tell you exactly the opposite. But then for our senior projects and our modernity projects, those are the chances where you guys get a chance to really go a little bit broader and a little bit deeper with a film project. So I've had kids make 5 to 10 minute documentaries about addiction to phones. I've had kids make grimy sort of Safdie Brothers inspired films in New York City. I've had kids do horror films or comedies or romantic dramas. And all of those films in a modernity project or a senior project scale are usually 5 to 10 minutes long. So that's where if you're really into acting or editing or working collaboratively on a team, you'll get a chance to do that kind of stuff.
Can you talk a little bit more about the modernity project?
Yeah, for sure. Modernity projects happen in 11th grade. They happen in the spring, and it's a long-term project. Basically, we're trying to get you guys ready not only for college level projects, but also for your senior project, which is a completely independent capstone course. Basically, you guys get to come up with something you're really obsessed with. So say it's crime films. You want to make your own crime film. Great, that's awesome. And I actually highly encourage you to make crime films because I love crime films. So the Modernity Project basically covers the span of time in the 20th century, late 19th and early 20th century. So Second Industrial Revolution, basically all the way up through the Great Depression. And you get to choose one thing that happened in the world in that period. So it can be about immigration, it can be about early cinema, it can be about radios, it can be about a certain form of art like Dada or Surrealism. And then you guys get to make a project that is completely creative or completely historical. It is totally up to you. For us, we are just trying to get you guys ready to do projects on your own independently, which is how most US universities work if you go on an arts track.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Can you talk a little bit about the facilities and yeah, facilities and things like that that we offer at Ross?
Yeah, we're fairly well stocked in terms of facilities at Ross. I really wish I had gone to a high school that had all of the gear that we had to play with. We have a full TV studio downstairs in our media building. So it's kind of like a college black box. You can go down there and do green screen effects. It's got a full lighting grid. It's also got portable lights. So if you want to do lighting outdoors at night for an evening shoot, we have all of the equipment for that. If you want to do contained interviews, though, particularly for documentaries, it's a great space to do that kind of work. You can also set up animation stands down there if you have an animation project, because animation often takes a long time. So if you're doing stop motion work, anything that's going to be animated in front of a camera, you can use that space as well. And then we also have the Innovation Lab, which has, I mean, everything from 3D printers to VR goggles and so on and so forth. So it's a candy store of technological goodies.
Mm-hmm. um, I'm particularly interested. I mean, it sounds like students can, you know, there's the tools that they'll need, the mentors that they'll need to create. If you know you're interested in making film, what I'm also really like about our media program is, and Mila sort of mentioned this, but I saw that there was a class this year on what was the class called? Surfers, Protesters, and
Surfers, Protesters, and Plastic People. It was countercultural media.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about Mila, can you talk about your experience with the class before I ask Paul about it?
So basically we were learning about society and what culture is and what society is versus that. And then we learned a bit about political economy and rebellion and things such. And I thought it was really interesting. I mean, I really enjoyed that class. I think it's been my favorite elective at Ross so far.
Very cool.
I really enjoyed all of the readings. We, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the movie Taxi Driver. We watched that a bit, and then we focused on the guy in the movie. And we also focused on alienation and discontent in society and what that leads people to do. So I thought it was really interesting because it was sort of also a study of people.
Yeah. Cool. Now you've also taken, or also, sorry, Paul, still along those lines, I guess it's always, I'm just still blown away with the amount of academic electives that we have at Ross. And this is like one of the most fascinating, these countercultural or like anything, especially when with regard to what your background is. What are some other, in addition to that, what are some other classes that we offer and what inspires them when you create them?
You know, I think I'll take it as a couple of questions. For me, the counterculture class, I'll handle number one, and then I'll talk about some other electives.
Perfect.
The counterculture class is based off of one of my very favorite classes that I took as a college student. It was a 1960s, 1970s film history course, and the professor was just dynamite. She was totally on point. And she just opened up this aspect of film to me that I really never had thought of, had existed. She treated films the same way that in a history class you would treat a textbook. And she said, if you watch a movie like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas or Taxi Driver, you can learn as much about US culture and US history, its politics, its culture, the way people feel, and oftentimes the way people feel really badly about themselves by watching these movies. So the countercultural media course, I thought, it's a perennially pertinent subject. Alienation, rebellion, feeling like you don't belong. I thought it was a really cool course idea, and so I ran with it. And fortunately at Ross, we're a little more freeform, so we get the chance to, discuss something that, typically at another school, I don't think you're going to touch on those topics in core courses. So yeah, it's a free-form course for sure. A little bit of reading, a lot of film viewing, and projects that can either be historical, if you want to do them historically, but they can also be completely creative. If you want to do stuff that's much closer to a memoir, you can absolutely do that. I'm not interested in having you guys do a project in just one way. You can kind of choose your own adventure in an elective with me. In terms of other electives, I have a course which is next year, it'll be a full year-long course, and that's my e-commerce class. So basically in that class, if you're interested in doing anything related to politics or law involving the media industry, so we're talking the G Mafia, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, if you're into any of those companies and wondering how those companies function, the e-commerce class is that spot. So I give you guys business incubators, I give you guys readings, we watch a few films in that class, and that's an evolving class for sure, because we're talking about a fast-moving target. So if you've taken it with me in the fall before, and then next fall comes around, it'll probably be a totally different course because Amazon or Facebook is probably facing totally different issues that year. So I try to keep it as like a current events technology class.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How much is in regard to your teaching style, how much, and students at Ross, how much do you think these classes, I imagine these classes rely quite a bit on the chemistry and the makeup of the students. How much do you find your classes might change year to year based on the students in the class?
Oh, it's huge. It's like teaching a totally different elective every single year. The counterculture class, when I taught it the first year, before Mila took it, excuse me, that was a totally different group of students. And they wanted different projects, they wanted different readings. And yeah, the entire tenor of that conversation was quite different because they also had really different political beliefs. When Mila's class took it, again, it was totally different. And that's the cool thing about electives at Ross. If I'm reading the room and going, I don't think these kids are really digging this particular film or this particular text, we can choose something else. We're not bounded by a curriculum at all. So for you guys, if it looks like 5 of you were to take that class with me, and you'd said, oh, Paul, can we focus more on this, this, and this? Yeah, we can do that. I can absolutely adapt to that. So yeah, electives are pretty plastic in that regard.
And Mila, do you find as a student at Ross, do you find the same, that depending on who's in the class and based on teachers, like what can you share a little bit of your experience specific in the media and technologies department and how things change?
So basically I've taken counterculture media with Paul, and then the other media things I've taken is just media with Alexis Martino, where we also sort of focus on films, and I'm in 10th grade, we focused on political journaling and doing such things. And I really enjoyed that, but I enjoyed counterculture media more. But yeah, I think that class is totally reliant on, if it's a core class like media with Alexis was, I think it's more focused on the curriculum because she has to give us certain things. But if it's an elective, I think it totally depends on the students. You can get like hung up on a subject for like a week, and then it all changes, and then you may vary the topic and branch off a little bit into something else that wasn't really planned at all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it definitely depends.
When I reached out to you about doing this, you said I'm very passionate about media and technology.
Right.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that and what aspects you're passionate about?
So I'm very passionate about anything involving art. So I think writing is definitely a form of art. I really like writing. I wrote a story for Paul's final project,
Mm-hmm.
which I really enjoyed. I also really like film, but I haven't really gotten into that. But I like film photography as well, and just photography in general.
Mm-hmm.
I went on a photography trip last year for M term.
Mm-hmm. So that's Field Academy for all of these newbies. And where did you go for Field Academy when you did that?
We went to Colombia and Peru.
Oh, cool. What was the focus of was there a subject of the photography trip, or could you choose?
There was not really a subject. It was basically you could have 3 independent projects that you were focusing on the entire trip, and then you had to have the final things for that.
Cool. So Paul, my question is, when, let's say a student, does want to do a bigger project, like a 5 to 10 minute film or a crime drama or so, something. And what are the steps then that you as a mentor might take, and what tools are at their disposal, like actors and location and things like that?
It's a great question. And it's the question that if you guys are into filmmaking in general, will come up every single time you do a production. How can I find people who are willing to be in front of the camera? Especially when you're starting out, willing to act for you and not really get paid. How are you going to find all of the gear, and how are you going to make sure that you have enough friends who can act as crew members and are willing to hang out with you, sometimes for, like 12-hour shifts, because making films it's a labor of love, and it's kind of blue collar labor. I don't know if you guys have made a film with your friends before, but it takes a lot, it's a tough deal. So with your modernity project or your senior project in particular, typically what happens is a kid comes up and says, hey, I really loved the Safdie brothers' Good Time, or I really loved this film Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, or I love Tarantino films. Can we make a movie like that? I'm like, yeah, sure. It's not going to be 3 hours. It's going to be 5 minutes. We need to write a script first and foremost. So you guys give me an idea. We write a quick script. We make sure we have dialogue. And if we're not going to have dialogue, we use it as a script treatment. And we do that stuff just one-on-one. So that'll be after school usually. We'll just hang out and hash out your script treatment or your script proper. From there, we do a full prop and gear list. So we make sure that everything from fake blood to fog juice to extra SD cards, we have that completely collected before we get anyone else involved. Then we look at sets. This past year, I had a student whose parents owned a brownstone in Brooklyn. It was like a 4-story abandoned brownstone. So that was our set. So he and I drove into the city and did set design in the space. We went every level. We just, designed the rooms the way that we wanted them, bought costumes for all of our characters. And then I actually knew former students who went to Ross who are now doing filmmaking in the city. And I said, hey, would you guys be willing to be crew and actors? And they said, yeah, for sure. And that's something that's really cool about Ross. Once folks graduate, they continually come back and sort of stay in touch. So it was really easy to reach out to alumni and say, hey, you remember doing your senior project? And they were like, yeah, it was tough. Of course, I'm going to help this kid out. So they came and they gigged on the set. We did it over a couple of different weekends, and we just shot all around New York. We ran down in the subway. We ran out on the streets. We lit smoke bombs everywhere. We got the fire department called on us. It was wild. So yeah, I treat it like a college film shoot. Everything from running slate to running sound to running camera. You're going to get a full sense of what it means to be on set in a senior project. And that happens, literally, we're talking over a year. So from the point when a student comes up to me, usually that's in April or May of their junior year, all the way through about January 10th, I think was the last day that we locked that picture. You're working on that senior project, whether that's a film or whether that's building a robotic arm or whether that's a history project. It's a full process.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's see. I'm going to, because I know a little bit about all of you, the new students here. Can I? First of all, do you have any questions so far? Oh, I see Natalia has muted herself. Marco, do you mind if I call you out for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay, I know that you have a real love of film. Is there anything that you're particularly excited about? Or do you have any, if you come to Ross, is there a class that you're hoping to take or a project that you're hoping to do? Or do you have a question for Paul about that? Or
Like what he described, like running through New York shooting, I thought this was really nice because I didn't know we would do that in high school. I thought it would be like college level. So I'm really excited about that.
very cool. Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate as to what it's like for a long time until you have a budget, right? Which may not happen for a very long time. Nina, I know that you'd like to be an actress. Do you have an interest in filmmaking as well?
Yeah, kind of. And I just want to add that if you're looking for an actress, I can play older roles.
Yeah. Well, I was going to just share with you very quickly. So prior to Ross, I lived in Los Angeles for a long time and was trying to do the very classic making it as an actress there. And one of the things that you learn very quickly is that in order to get material out there, you have to learn how to do it yourself. And so I learned that I was going to have to write my own material, make my own projects, and you learn exactly what Paul said. You have to get your friends to do it for free and promise them pizza and beer when you're older, and just cross your fingers that they're all going to show up when they need to and that they're okay with doing an all-night shoot. And then you get your product out there as an actress, like that's what you want to do, or an actor. And so this kind of stuff I would highly recommend as an actress that you learn, even if you're thinking about being an actor on stage, but especially for film, like understanding what it's like to be behind the camera, what it's like to run sound, what it's like to be on a shoot all night and have to be a producer and have to go run and get things and realize that this thing was positioned this way in that last shot, and when you edit it together it's going to look like a mess. So I highly recommend taking a film production class of some kind if you want to be in front of the camera. It makes you so much more valuable on a shoot. Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions?
What kind of movies are you guys watching right now? We all have plenty of screen time. Are you guys watching anything good?
You can put it in the chat too if you want.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Or what's the last great movie you saw that you loved?
Recently, I kind of watched Modern Times from Charles Chaplin, and I loved it.
Oh man, that movie rocks. That is such a cool film.
Modern Times, is that what it was called?
Yeah, great special effects in that film. The factory set in particular is outstanding. I am continually amazed that he managed to achieve that. What, in 1931 or something like that?
36, I think.
Okay, yeah, and it's an early sound film too, and sound is used super creatively.
Yeah, I like the critics behind the industry.
Yeah, Chaplin, he was an absolute perfectionist. He shot more film at that time than almost anyone else. So his shooting ratio, when you see an hour of his film, it meant that he shot probably 20 to 50 hours of footage just to get that hour of film. He was very precise. So all of those gags that look so spontaneous, he worked months rehearsing those things. But Modern Times, man, that's an awesome film.
Mila, have you seen, what's the last thing, what are you watching right now?
I haven't really watched a movie in a long time, but I'm watching Criminal Minds. I really like that show.
Yeah, very slick.
I recently watched Knives Out, which, has anybody seen this?
Yeah, the Ryan Johnson film. That was awesome.
I was
so
really blown away by it because it felt so classic, like, but still so new at the same time to me.
Yeah, no, it was like an old Hollywood film. It was that really snappy His Girl Friday kind of dialogue. And what's his name? Daniel Craig. I thought he was awesome in that movie.
So impressed. Yeah. Cool. Well, Mila, can you tell me a little bit more about, maybe just to share your experience at Ross and just from your perspective in general, like what your favorite things are about it and maybe what, we could work on if you want.
So I came to Ross for summer camp when I was in 6th grade going into 7th grade, and I really, really, really liked it. I really liked the summer camp program and everything we did, the campus, and the way of teaching. So I decided to come to Ross for 3 months in 7th grade. And then I also really enjoyed it. So then I came back for the entire 8th grade year and the 9th grade year and now 10th grade. But yeah, I've just stuck with it because I really, really love it. I really love the curriculum. I love all of the teachers, the faculty. I love the campus. I mean, I'm amazed with how pretty our campus is and like the opportunities we get to have because of it. And yeah, I just think it's a really modern way of education that we have at Ross. I really enjoy it.
What are some other things that you do aside from, or that you like to do aside from media and technology classes?
I mean, art is one of the things, just, drawing, also painting. And then I'm really interested also in just history. So I take history with Carrie Clark. She's an amazing teacher. Yeah, I mean, those are basically the things I'm interested in.
Great. And then Paul, if you could leave these four with any, advice, I think all four of them are potentially, well, Marco is official, but I think all four of them are potentially coming. If you have any advice for them from faculty.
I would just say, Ross is, it's unlike any high school that I know of in terms of the ability to do really independent kind of personal work. It's definitely not the kind of school where you're being graded according to like an international rubric, the same way that you would be at an international baccalaureate school. It's a spot where, classes are usually pretty small, so you're definitely going to get to know your instructors on a first name basis, which is really cool. So take that opportunity to get to know an instructor or a couple of instructors. And typically what you'll find is that at Ross, whether it's in a core course and especially in an elective, teachers are more than willing to get to know you as a person, not just as a student, and more than willing to personalize a project or personalize a course given your interests or your background. It's definitely not a cookie cutter place. So the more feedback you give teachers, whether that's by emailing them or saying, hey, I really like this, or hey, I found this really boring and tedious, can we do something else? The better off your educational experience at Ross is going to be, because we do have significant flexibility in terms of how we give you guys our curriculum.
Great. Well, does anyone else have any questions or comments? Please feel free.
Well, it was very helpful, so thank you.
Oh, good, Nina.
Cool.
Well, I'm very excited to meet all of you in person potentially. We talk about you a lot in in our office, and then just get really excited to share you with our current faculty and current students. And so thank you for coming today. And you can, and I'm sure both Mila and Paul would be very willing to to answer questions. So I'm going to tell you that Paul's email is that Gansky in his box at ross.org. And then Mila Stileman is mstileman@ross.org. And you can, or actually, what's your email?
22.
22. So mstileman22@ross.org. And I'm sure that if you want to reach out to them personally with any questions, they would be willing to chat with you. So, and me too. So feel free to reach out, okay? Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.